This Monday, January 13th, NBA Betting Picks edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. Welcome, everyone, to the NBA Gambling Podcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Monday, January 13th. Here to get you guys ready for a new week of NBA betting. 6 games on the schedule on Monday night. We'll recap what we saw over the weekend. Of course, break down every game on the Monday schedule. And we'll wrap it up with our lock and dog and our Underdog Fantasy entry for tonight. But joining me, of course, on this episode to help me break everything down. You guys know myself, voice of the Tennis Gambling Podcast, the WNBA Gambling Podcast, the MLB Gambling Podcast, and of course here on the NBA Gambling Podcast, it's Scott Studio Reichel. Scott, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
Hey, doing pretty well. Had a couple of football games, of course, over the weekend. I'd say one of them was good. I mean, if you bet and you did well, then all of them were good, I guess. But the point is, if you're a fan of the actual sport, I'd say only one game was actually good. So hopefully you potentially enjoyed some basketball. There was a lot of competitive basketball taking place. I'm sure most people in the country didn't pay much attention to it because they were focused on the NFL, but there were some competitive games over the weekend on the hardwood.
Yeah, weekend basketball, I think more so. I was paying attention more yesterday than anything. I think we had a couple more blowouts on Sunday.
Well, I'm assuming you were very busy on Saturday, right?
Yeah, Saturday, 3:30 my time, 4:30 Eastern. I was locked in to the Texans game. Fortunately for us, the defense did show up. Justin Herbert throwing 4 picks. CJ Stroud looked okay, I guess. He's going to have to play his best ball against the defending Super Bowl champions next Saturday, but it's typically how it goes for the Houston Texans every year. They win the AFC South, get the first game on the Saturday on the wild card weekend, then go to play the Chiefs, keep it a little bit competitive, and then the Chiefs eventually pull away, blow out, and then we repeat, and same thing happens again next year. So we'll see what transpires this weekend for the Texans on Saturday against the Kansas City Chiefs. But yeah, yesterday, I mean, on the first 2 games or at least the first game was a blowout. The Bucks and the Knicks. I mean, it wasn't even close. 44-point performance from Mr. One Jalen Brunson. 140-106 victory there for the New York Knicks. The Pelicans in the Boston game was actually pretty entertaining if you were locked in on that game. Pelicans nearly pull off the win, but fall a little bit short there. 121-19 victory in favor of the Celtics. And I guess we could say the upset of the day was the Indiana Pacers heading to Cleveland, or in Cleveland, I should say. 108-93 victory there, handing the Cavs, I believe, their 5th or 6th loss of the season. But and of course, the Wizards lose by 40-plus points. So just another day in the NBA, Scott.
Yeah, it's their 5th loss of the season. Point is, props to Indiana. I'll start there. Team's good. Like, we were waiting for this team to figure it out a little bit. They've been better over the last couple of weeks. We've talked about that on the show. No, they're good. Like, I'm not saying they're going to be able to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals again, but at least Indiana is, I'd say, a respectable foe at this point for other teams. You can't overlook them like you probably could have for the first couple of months of the season. Indiana's actually kind of channeling some of last year's, I'd say, success and some of the, I'd say, attributes of last year's team to actually kind of duplicate that. They've been good. So props to Indiana. They have a win this season over Boston, a win this season now over Cleveland. They've been definitely a team that you can't really overlook anymore. And I feel like that's definitely something that you want to at least keep in mind if you're going to be betting on Indiana or maybe trying to fade Indiana in the future. This team is not the same team that it was about a month or 2 ago. This team's actually solid again, so keep that in mind. Indiana should be a playoff team. We'll see exactly where they finish seeding-wise. Besides that, though, just going into the games we'll go yesterday in particular. I want to give a shout-out to the Jazz for helping the Nets draft situation because the Nets won the tank bowl yesterday. They lost the game, but they won the tank bowl. So overall, that was kind of a crazy game where Utah blew a massive lead there in the final 6 minutes. Won the game in overtime, did not cover, though, in the end. Besides that, the Sixers did lose to the Magic. Props to Banchero, who I thought looked pretty good in his
Yeah.
first 2 games back. Did lose the game on Friday against Milwaukee. That game was very competitive, too. Ended up losing. Did beat the Sixers, though, on a Sunday. So props to Orlando and Banchero, who's looked pretty good since coming back from injury. Sabonis had a monster game. The Kings are above 500 again. Like, this team's been pretty good since getting rid of Mike Brown. Yes, the schedule's been a bit weak. They also beat Boston. So keep that in mind. Boston keeps underachieving as massive favorites. I believe they were laying like 10.5 in that game. They almost lost outright to the Pelicans yesterday. Boston's just messing around as double-digit favorites in basically every game that they have. So once again, Boston's been really unreliable when it comes to winning by margin, and that's something that's concerning. But the Kings have been good. Props to Christie, who's done a good job of keeping this team together. Sabonis has done well. And shout out to a guy who's made me a lot of money over the last couple of weeks, Zach LaVine, who just keeps scoring 30 points in every game. So Zach LaVine points props have been really, really good. He had 36 again last night. I'll end it there. Props to LaVine, who I know has gone a bad rap for not being a winning basketball player, etc. But for the sake of props and for the sake of entertainment, when he's on, guy's a really good basketball player when it comes to scoring. I don't know if he does anything else to help you win, but his actual scoring and his overall, I'd say, just talent is undeniable. LaVine's on the middle of a massive heater. And even backing his props, he's done very well.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the type of guy that if you just need a scorer on your roster to, for a playoff contender, and if he plays any type of defense, I know the whole situation with LaVine is a contract situation, which is, pretty untradeable. But I think that, for him, for what he's been able to do over the past couple of weeks here, I think that, when, like you mentioned, when he's locked in, he can drop 30 points within the blink of an eye. Sabonis, I should mention as well, coming off the 28 rebound performance. Followed that up as well on in the game against the Chicago Bulls. I believe he finished with 17 in that game.
He had 22, 15, and 8.
Yeah, they 15, and 8 in that game. So you mentioned it now, above $500 Sacramento Kings under Doug Christie. So we'll see if they keep this core intact, because there was rumors of potentially De'Aaron Fox on the move. But so far, so good under Doug Christie as the interim head coach right now for the Sacramento Kings. Before we do get into the games here for tonight, let me just remind you again that the NFL playoffs kicked off this past weekend. And make sure you guys tune in with the Sports Gambling Podcast with Sean and Kramer. They have all your NFL picks and props covered all throughout the NFL playoffs leading up to the big game. All right, let's get into the action here for Monday night. We'll start it here with the Minnesota Timberwolves. They are in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, to take on the Wizards. Wolves currently laying between 13.5 to 14 points with a total of 223. Looking at the injury report for Minnesota, pretty clean. Nobody really of significance on there. For the Wizards, like we mentioned, they did play yesterday against the Oklahoma City Thunder, lose by 40-plus points on a back-to-back situation here. Don't really think it's going to matter here, Scott. But what are your thoughts on this matchup between the Wolves and the Wizards?
Yeah, so the Wizards, of course, you said before, got their asses kicked by OKC. Then again, that's what most teams do against OKC, with the exception of the Cavaliers. So I don't really know if I can have much to take away from that game against the Thunder. They played the Thunder twice this season. They lost by double digits. What are you supposed to do? Like, OKC's going to kill you. It is what it is. Now, for the actual matchup here, the Wizards, we know, are one of the worst teams in the league. However, if you want to actually include the tanking teams now, the Nets with all the injuries and whatever the hell the Jazz have been doing with benching some key guys yesterday, for example, the Wizards are still really bad at 6-31. They're the worst record in the league. There might be teams that are actually worse on paper when you factor in all the injuries and everything like that. The Nets might be the worst team in the league with all the injuries they have. The Wizards do have some talent, at least in terms of scoring. Poole can score. I like Koulibaly. They have Kuzma, who maybe gets traded, maybe not. Sarr has had a decent month or so. I still acknowledge this team's terrible, but I want to ask about Minnesota, because Minnesota's been playing okay. They lost that game to Memphis over the weekend, which was an
Mhm.
absolute war. That game was high scoring. They fell a bit short. Do you want to lay 14 with the Timberwolves? Because I don't trust this team at all. But the Wizards are really, really bad. So it's pretty tricky because I feel like the Wolves can kind of name the score, but the chemistry is still off. I don't
Yeah.
really trust the offense game in, game out. And I feel like the focus isn't there game in, game out. So the Wolves are kind of a weird team because, on one hand, yes, on paper, they should dominate. I know DiVincenzo had a great game over the weekend, which he's kind of needed. It's nice to see DiVincenzo figuring it out again after being pretty bad for the first couple months of the season. But do you want to lay 14 here? Because I don't know if I feel great about laying 14 with this Minnesota team.
I think because they are on a back-to-back situation here, are the Washington Wizards, and this is gonna be their sixth game where they are on a back-to-back situation. For the 5 games that they lost, or I should say, they've lost all 5 games, so they're on a back-to-back this season. But 4 of the 5 that they did lose have been by 15 or more points. The only game that they did end up covering on a back-to-back was against the Sixers, where they were a 10.5 point underdog, but they still lost that game by 6. I think this is an opportunity for, if this wasn't a back-to-back, I would consider the Wizards here, but I think that maybe some tired legs do catch up to the Wizards, and there's always the possibility that they sit maybe like Poole or Kuzma in this game. I just don't think they have enough scoring, honestly. Like you mentioned, I think the Minnesota Timberwolves can really name their number. I think this is a good opportunity for Anthony Edwards to have a big game because they do have some tough matchups coming up on their schedule. So I don't think this is a game that they want to mess around with. But I'm willing to lay it here. I really can't get behind this Wizards team right now. They could probably keep it competitive in the first half, but then I think when those tired legs do catch up for this Wizards team in the second half, I think that's where Minnesota does, pull away and build that margin because, again, like I mentioned, back-to-back situation here. This is the 5th game in 7 nights for the Wizards, 4th game in 6 nights, and 3rd game in 4 nights as well. So those are always tricky situations for these type of teams here. So I'll lay the wood here, and then if the Wizards cover the number, I'll lick my wounds here, but I'll lay it here with the Wizards, Scott.
I think I'm gonna
Sorry,
have
with
to
the
go.
Wolves. Yeah,
I think I'm gonna have to go that way
yeah,
because the Wizards are that bad, and I do think that based on the front court, Minnesota should dominate. I mean,
yeah,
You're looking at Valanciunas off the bench who can't move. If we're being honest, the guy's a good rebounder. He can't actually do anything in today's NBA because he gets torched in every single, I'd say, defensive assignment because he can't really move. You're
yeah,
looking at Sar, who is still a work in progress. I'll admit he's definitely come a long way from what he did in the summer league when he couldn't hit a shot. I'll admit that, but do I think that he'll be able to handle Gobert and like Randall on them? Like, no, probably not. I think Sar's going to have some problems. I mean, I think you're looking at Minnesota with Ant, with DiVincenzo, with even McDaniels. Like, they have some solid defenders individually. I think they can keep Poole in check.
yeah.
I think I'm going to have to go with the Wolves minus 14, but am I betting Wolves minus 14? No. I'm not going to bet Minnesota. I don't want to bet Minnesota at all at this point, but I think if I had to pick between the two of
Yeah.
them, I'd pick the Wolves. And we've seen time and time again when the Wizards lose, they get blown out. So Minnesota maybe by 20, but that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know if I want to lay 14 on the road with this team, but I don't want to
Fair
take
enough.
I don't want to take the Wizards, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that if it's, again, like I mentioned, if this was not a back-to-back situation with the Wizards, and again, they're, like I mentioned, they could probably sit some guys here. But yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, this Wizards team has just been really, really bad thus far this season. All right, let's keep it moving here. Next game on the schedule, we'll go over to the Detroit Pistons. They are in Madison Square Garden to take on the Knicks. Knicks laying 8 points in this game with a total of 223. Looking at the injury report for the Detroit Pistons, of course, we know Jaden Ivey is out, and that is pretty much it. For the New York Knicks, they did play on Sunday afternoon, blowing out the Milwaukee Bucks, scoring 140 points in that game. I'll check the game log here and see how many minutes the starters did end up playing in this game here, Scott, but I don't anticipate it was a whole heck of a lot for that Knicks team in that fourth quarter. But again, it is Tibbs. But laying 8 here on a back-to-back against the Pistons, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's really tricky because the Knicks had a great game against the Bucks. They still mess around all the time, which is why it's pretty hard to trust them to lay big numbers. Detroit, though, has been good. And Cade's favored to win a most improved, which I believe you called about 2 months ago. So
Yep.
shout out to you. But do I want to lay 8 with the Knicks? Probably not. They had a great game against Milwaukee. They got up for it. Brunson at 40. Like, they had a great overall game. But do I think they'll be able to bring that same intensity for the second straight day? Not really. I know they dominated the Bucks. They won every quarter. So they really just had an easy win there. A pretty impressive win against Milwaukee. But do I think they'll be able to bring the same intensity for the second straight game? I don't know if I feel that way. The Knicks have been a pretty streaky team, if we're being honest here, when it comes to especially covering. They've been able to step up on occasion and win some games, but on the other hand, they tend to let other teams hang around. And the Knicks, I feel like, have not exactly been able to consistently blow teams out. Detroit, though, seems to be kind of vibing with Bickerstaff pretty well right now. This team's been winning. They look very good in 2025. They might even potentially get out of the play-in. Like, this team is not bad. Like, I think that this team is going to be one and done in the playoffs, but for Detroit, making the playoffs is their Super Bowl at this point for the basketball team. So, especially after the Monty Williams experiment. So, I'm going to go Detroit in this one. I know Cat's been banged up for the last couple of weeks. He played yesterday. Is he guaranteed to play a back-to-back? I don't know. Do you think he's guaranteed to play this game? I think he's going to, but there's no guarantee. I don't know for certain if he's going to play. So I'll go Detroit plus the points. Detroit already beat the Knicks earlier this season. I believe that was in MSG. They scored like 120 points in that game, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll go with Detroit. They beat this team already, and they've looked pretty good. I'll take the 8 points.
I want to say that at this point of the season last year, the Detroit Pistons had 3 wins. I think that's something I saw on Twitter. And now they're sitting here at with 19 wins for this Detroit Pistons team. It feels like a letdown spot here, Scott, what you mentioned, because again, you got up for the Milwaukee Bucks at home on Sunday afternoon. And surprisingly, the starters, even though it was a 34-point victory, I mean, Tibbs doing Tibbs things again. Josh Hart, Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges all played 35 or more minutes. Jalen Brunson was the only one that played less than 30 minutes yesterday. He had 29 minutes, scored 44 points for the Knicks. But yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I've been on this Pistons team when they've been catching points, and they've done very well in those spots. It's kind of looking at the ATS numbers here for the Pistons. As an away dog this season, they're 10-5 ATS. They're 9-6 towards the over as well in those spots as an away underdog. So I think this will be another big Cade game. He did record a triple-double in the last matchup in Madison Square Garden, 29 points, 10 rebounds, and 15 assists. Could have a similar performance here, but again, like you mentioned, he's playing at a very, very high level right now. So yeah, I'm going to take the points here with the Pistons plus the 8. You have any thoughts on the total?
For the total, I think I'm going to go with the over. Detroit actually did very well offensively against this defense in the first meeting, and I think the Knicks offense can do well against this defense. I like the over. I think the total's too low.
Yeah, I'm with you there as well. I think the over would be the play for me as well. If you want to take a look at Pistons team total over again, like Scott mentioned, they did score 120 points in the matchup earlier this season in Madison Square Garden. So possibly could see a repeat performance of that. Anything else for this game here, Scott?
Oh, yeah, comment section's talking about a Brunson who left the game early yesterday, did come back. But
yeah,
if we're talking about players that could hypothetically sit in back-to-backs, Cat, we know, has missed some games recently. Brunson hurt his shoulder. He came back, but there would be a potential opportunity after beating Milwaukee, especially Brunson, who had 40-plus points. Maybe you sit him for a game. That's a possibility. It's the NBA. Everybody sits at some point. So maybe Brunson, besides Mikal Bridges, I guess. Point is, though, maybe you see Brunson sit in this game. Who knows? I do have a fun trivia question for you, though.
Shoot.
Because you mentioned how the Knicks had a bunch of guys playing a bunch of minutes despite winning the game by about 40 yesterday. My question for you, if you took the 3-man lineups that are available from any team, do you want to guess how many of the top 7 3-man lineups in minutes played together are on the Knicks?
How many of the 7?
The top 7 3-man lineups. how many of those 7, in terms of minutes played,
Yeah,
are Knicks?
all Knicks. I
That
think
is
it's all.
correct.
Yeah.
The top 7 lineups in terms of minutes together on the court are Knicks lineups for
I
these
don't think
balls.
that comes as a shock to like anybody that listens to our pod here because we just
I'm just
always
saying you can mix and match like basically 3 men from the starting lineup, and
yeah.
they all basically are in the top 7 for most minutes played per game. So just keep that in mind. Thibodeau will not rest anybody usually ever.
Yeah.
But just keep that in mind. Brunson, if he did have 40 and he got injured yesterday, maybe actually sit him for once. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't care if you're up by 50 points. Your starters are still going to be out there playing till 2 minutes left in the game.
Mhm.
All right. We talked about the playoffs, so the NFL playoffs, and yeah, we're talking about the NFL playoffs. You bet we are. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning in the playoffs, and you can win and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SGP. That's code SGP for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Gamble.
All right, let's keep it moving here. Let's go to the next game on the schedule. We'll go with the Golden State Warriors. They are in Toronto to take on the Raptors. Currently, the number has moved to -6 in favor of the Golden State Warriors as a road team here. Total is sitting at 228.5. Excuse me. Injury report. I'll start here with the Warriors. Draymond is questionable for tonight. He's dealing with an illness. Jonathan Kuminga, Gary Payton II, and Brendan Pajemski are all out for this game here tonight. For the Toronto Raptors, very healthy squad. Nobody is on the injury report here. Warriors laying 6 points here at home. Warriors laying 6 points on the road here, Scott, in Toronto. Total 228.5. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the Warriors are just such an unserious team. They finally win a game. Congratulations. And you bench the entire team the game after. Like, you just immediately lose the next. Like, what's the point? You can't even win games in a row. Why would you bother even trying to win this game if you're going to tank the one right after it? They're at 500. Team's not very good at all. Toronto's not good, but at least they're healthy, which counts for something. Like, they have talent. They can actually score. Games in Canada, kind of a weird travel spot for a California team heading to Canada to actually play. Quickly is questionable, who, when he's played this season, barely. He has been doing pretty well assist-wise. He had 25 points last game against Detroit. So he's actually been good this season, but he's downgraded to questionable. So that's probably not a good sign. I'm not lying that the Golden State on the road. I can't stand this damn Golden State team. I think they might lose the game outright. This team stinks. Like, Toronto's not good record-wise, but at least they've had excuses. At least they've had injuries. Golden State just doesn't seem to be, I'd say, clicking at all in any aspect for the last couple months. I'll take Toronto. It's going to be, once again, a home game. So Toronto's been a lot better at home than on the road. 6 is a lot for this Warriors team right now, who have a hard time winning any games. To win by margin, I'll pass. Give me Toronto +6.
Yeah, right there with you. Warriors as a road favorite, especially when they're missing those 3 key players there, or role players, I should say, hasn't been very good for them, I should say, for lack of better words. But we talked about this Raptors team a lot at the beginning of the season. Their splits when it comes to the ATS numbers, and they've been very good at home, and they've been very poor on the road. And they are at home here catching the points this season as a home underdog. Are the Raptors? Let's see, 11-5-1 ATS in those spots there. They're also, for whatever reason, 7-2-1 when they have the rest disadvantage. But again, this Warriors team, when you talk about their ATS numbers, look, not much standing out. 5-3 in the first half as far as ATS, just 4-4 ATS as in a way favored this season. But it's just really, again, like you mentioned, a lot of the inconsistencies about this Warriors team is that, Steph Curry, I thought, and I don't want to say a foolish bet, but hindsight now to lead the league in scoring because I felt like they really didn't have very many options behind Steph Curry. And I think, the chat pointing it out as well, that they're missing Kuminga right now, who was starting to come into his own a little bit in the role that he was in with this Warriors team, unfortunately, with the injury. But Andrew Wiggins should be playing this game. I believe he is from Canada, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe a little homecoming game there. I don't think he's played there since 2001 or 2021. But yeah, Raptors here for me, +6. I can't justify right now the Warriors laying this many points here on the road. I do like the over in the game here. Scott, I think the Raptors team total would be something that I would look at here as well. But do you have anything on the total?
For the total, I think it would be over or pass because that involves Toronto actually guarding anybody, and I cannot pick that happening. So I think I'd go over, but maybe Toronto team total over because I think offensively they actually can give Golden State some problems because they do have some scoring depth when they are healthy. Once again, it depends if Quickly is actually going to end up playing or not because Quickly does give them not even just a spark in terms of talent, but a spark in terms of pace. So Quickly missing actually would be a pretty decent deal. We'll see what happens. I think he's not going to play because if you get downgraded to questionable, that's probably not a good sign, especially for a borderline tank. Not even know if it's borderline, just a tanking team at this point.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think I would go over, but I'd probably just want to back Toronto's offense because Golden State, without Kuminga, I don't know what the hell they're doing. So I think I'll just go with Toronto team total over, but I don't really have much. I'd rather just take Toronto to keep this game competitive and to maybe win it outright.
Fair enough. All right, let's keep it moving here. Next game on the schedule will go to the Western Conference. We've got the Memphis Grizzlies. They are in Houston to take on the Rockets. Rockets laying 2 points here at home with a total of 236 in this game. Excuse me. Looking at the injury report for both of these teams, we'll start here with Memphis. They will be without Marcus Smart, Vince Williams Jr., Gigi Jackson, and Cam Spencer. For the Rockets, pretty clean injury report. Tari Eason continues to be doubtful. And of course, we know Jabari Smith is missing time with the fractured hand. Third meeting between these two teams this season. The Rockets have won each of the first 2 meetings. They just played, I want to say, last week in Memphis. Rockets got the 119-115 victory there. So
they almost blew that game, but they held on and they won.
Yep. Not maybe, but you can say an immediate revenge spot for the Memphis Grizzlies here, Scott. But Rockets laying 2 at home. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just expect these teams to kill each other. We saw that in the first meeting. These teams definitely gave a great, I'd say, war against each other, a great showing. And we saw Houston outlast them. Dylan Brooks, for some reason, kept shooting in the final minute of the fourth quarter. Like Van Vliet had that shot over Kennard and then never shot the ball again. And Brooks bricked a couple threes, but they were able to hold on anyway. Not an easy win at all. Now, the problem there is that Memphis has been really good at home, and they lost to Houston. So can they actually go into Houston and win? Şengün dominated that game, and it felt like the Grizzlies really had no answers for him for the entire matchup. Thought Ja wasn't that great. I'd say over the weekend he wasn't that great, but just to look at the actual numbers in the last meeting, just want to quickly see what the box score had to kind of just point out who played well. I know Van Vliet had a solid shot there over Kennard at the end. Yeah,
Morant had a pretty good game.
Yeah, Van Vliet at 22 points on 8 of 13 shooting. Dylan Brooks, by the way, 2 of 15. Sounds about right.
Yep.
For the Grizzlies, though, Ja was 9 of 22 for 27 points. Bane had 16 points. Jaren Jackson Jr. had 21. So both teams kind of had similar games where a couple guys stepped up and a couple other guys were really bad. So you might see the same thing again, but damn, Şengün did whatever he wanted against this team. Şengün at 32, 14, and 5. So I think I'm going to go with Houston at home. They are a really good home team. The Grizzlies on the road this season are really not great. In fact, I believe they're a 500 team on the road. So, yes, it is a revenge game. They're 1 over on the road, technically. Houston, though, is 2-0 this season. Won by 20 at home the first time and won by 4 on the road the second time. It might just be a bad matchup for Memphis. Like, it just seems like Houston is built a certain way that does give Memphis some problems. I'll go with Houston. If you want to go for the immediate revenge angle, you can. But Memphis on the road is significantly different than Memphis at home. And Houston on the road is significantly different than Houston at home. Give me Houston at home.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about how good this Rockets team has been under Ime Udoka, in particular at home. ATS numbers, first half, they've been really good as a home favorite, 11-4, 9-5-1 overall in the first half. And then you take a look at the Grizzlies. We talked about the Grizzlies. You never see the Grizzlies playing, you maybe just want to automatically just play the over. But when they have been a road underdog this season, they are 8-2 towards the over. And I think it's what you mentioned, that it's just probably a bad matchup for this Memphis Grizzlies team, this Rockets team. But I'll continue backing them here at home, -2 here. Expect Şengün to have another big game. I think, again, Morant, hopefully, I don't know if he had rust or if he's still dealing with a lingering injury that's bothering him, but still got up 22 shots in that meeting just last week. Did have 27 points like we did mention. So, yeah, give me the Rockets -2 here. I think Şengün could have another big game here for the Rockets. So that's what I'm looking at. Do you have anything for the total?
Oh, by the way, for the side, I might actually prefer to live bet this game because this game, I think, is going to come down to the wire. I'm not picking Houston to smack this team.
Yeah.
You might be able to find a better price, maybe live. Maybe if you want to go for like a largest comeback 10+. This
Sure.
game does kind of check that box of just being a game that comes down to the wire. Both teams kind of take turns leading, and I just think Houston will eventually outlast them in the fourth quarter with that home court advantage. For the total, I think I have to go with the over, but the last meeting landed 234. Both teams couldn't hit a jumper for the last 2 minutes of regulation, so the total kind of died in the last 2 minutes. First meeting did end up landing 236. So total has been very close to this number twice, but I do think that the Grizzlies in the first meeting weren't that healthy, so I think they are better offensively now than they were in the first meeting. Second meeting was very close. The game slowed down at the end when it was in crunch time. I mean, in theory, you could even get like a potential overtime game here. Like, these teams might kill each other in this one. I'm going to go with the over. I just see a decent amount of pace and a decent amount of offense, but I think it should be a fun game. So I'll go over. But once again, this game might be just an absolute slugfest from start to finish. So you might be able to live bet this game and get better numbers than pregame numbers if you actually time it out correctly. But I'll go with the over based on how the two meetings played out.
Yeah, it feels like the game slows down a little bit in the second half.
The first half has been track meet.
Yeah, especially the first quarter. So I went back and looked. The first game they played this season, they scored a combined 76 points in that. And then in that game, and then the most recent matchup, I believe it was 81 points, if I'm not mistaken. But maybe the first quarter over is worth a look. If you want to go first half over as well, I think that's a good look there as well. But yeah, first half over, and then I'll go with the Rockets here on the spread. Anything else for this game here, Scott?
Not really. Should be fun. I think Şengün PRA could be worth something because I'm not sure if Memphis can actually guard him. But should be a fun game. It would not shock me if maybe Jalen Green got going. We know he's had a pretty solid past month or so, and he's at home. So we'll see if Jalen Green maybe, rises to the occasion against Ja. We'll see. I know Amin Thompson didn't have a great game the most recent meeting, but of course he still had a very good past couple of weeks ever since being inserted into the starting lineup regularly and ever since you saw the Jabari Smith injury. So I don't mind potentially Amin Thompson double-double in this game. He had 10, 7, and 5 last time out, only 2 of 6 from the floor. But 7 rebounds is still pretty low for a guy that played 36 minutes in that game. I don't mind maybe an Amin Thompson rebounding game here.
Just trying to see what he did in the last. I know there was a game where he had double-digit rebounds.
He had back-to-back games, I think, entering that Memphis game, and then he didn't really do much in that.
Yeah,
but
cool. Yeah. All right.
Jalen Green, by the way, in that last meeting at 27 points. So Jalen Green points could be interesting.
Yeah, Jalen Green, he's just so inconsistent for me. Like, he has one game where he scores like 30 plus, and the next game just lays an egg. But
that's kind of the point, though, is that he has to have those games inconsistently to keep people talking about him.
Yeah.
So there you go.
His 3-pointers may be a look because he's been 4 of 8 in each of the first 2 meetings this season against the Memphis Grizzlies. All right, before we get over to the next game on the schedule, let me tell everyone about our good old friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Pick'em has one of the biggest menus for all sports. Underdog is always making it easier to win with profit boosts and gimme pick'ems. Underdog Playoff Best Ball is now live. The Gauntlet Tournament has $2 million in prizes up for grabs for just a $25 entry. NFL, college football, college basketball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, and more. And you can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. Stay tuned at the end of the episode. Scott and I will put together our Underdog Fantasy entry for the Monday card. So sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Make sure you use that promo code NBA SGPN. All right, Scott, let's keep it rolling here. Next game on the schedule, we'll go over to the West Coast, the San Antonio Spurs. They are in LA to take on the Lakers. Lakers currently laying 3.5 points in this game with a total of 220.5. Injury report, start here with the San Antonio Spurs. They are pretty healthy. The only player that is questionable for this game is going to be Jeremy Sohan. For the LA Lakers, the usual guys on there, Anthony Davis and LeBron James probable, Bronny James questionable, and then, of course, your usual suspects that are out, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Jared Vanderbilt, and Christian Wood all out for this game. Pretty long layoff, of course, for the Lakers with the fires going on in California, unfortunately. So they've had a couple games postponed. I think it's been about a week since this team has played a basketball game, but looks like all indications are that they will be playing this game at Crypto Arena or whatever it's called now, crypto.com Arena, whatever. But nonetheless, Lakers laying 3.5 here. Scott, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, I still think the name of the arena would sound better if it was the Crypto Center, but they chose the crypto.com arena. So, sponsorships, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Point is, though, for this game, I'm going to go with the Lakers, minus 3.5. I think it's really tough to not sound insensitive when you try to apply the really sad situation in Los Angeles to a potential basketball game, because of course that's a serious issue. When you're talking about the emotions at play tonight, especially for the Lakers who had their head coach lose his home to an absolute, crazy wildfire that we've been seeing.
Yeah.
I got to imagine just emotionally the Lakers are going to respond to this overall environment. I have to imagine that. Once again, it's not right that I'm trying to apply the situation. I'm not trying to make light of it, but I got to talk about it in this context because they haven't played in a week. It's an extremely, I'd say, large elephant in the room, and their head coach literally lost his home.
Yeah.
It's a really, really sad situation, but if we're talking about, the potential atmosphere, I'm sure they'll do something pregame. I don't know if they're going to wear a patch or not or something, but I'll go with the Lakers. Besides all that, they've also won both meetings in San Antonio.
Yeah.
The second meeting was a blowout. I don't think the Spurs are that good in general. I've mentioned this many times. I don't like their supporting cast at all. Wemby's very good, but besides that, Chris Paul can't shoot. He's been better lately shooting, but they're not winning games. So I don't think the Spurs are actually good. That's why I like their win total under this season. They're going to give me a sweat for it, but I don't like their roster. Maybe you can agree or disagree with me. I think Castle's a solid young player. Vassell is one of Terrell's favorite players. I think he's fine. But it's Wemby and a lot of guys who probably won't be there in the future, if we're being honest here. But I'll go Lakers. Emotionally, it's a big game. And I think that based on that, and based on the Lakers have been, for the last couple of years, significantly better at home than on the road, I think the Lakers show up for this game. So I'll go with the Lakers minus 3.5.
Yeah, the Lakers have won 8 out of the last 10 matchups against the San Antonio Spurs. Like you mentioned, they've won each of the last two meetings, which were this season in San Antonio. It just feels like it's going to be one of those spots that it's emotional, and you have, obviously the fires going on. I'll be curious to see what the crowd looks like, because a lot of people did evacuate and or I should say, forced to evacuate from their homes. If it's a sold out arena, like you mentioned, there'll probably be some type of moment of silence, or
there's going to be something anyway, whether it's going to be sold
100%.
out or not. But
Robert mentioning that they have LA Strong merch available on Fanatics there as well. So maybe that's something when they wear it coming out pregame, warm-ups, or whatever the case might be. But yeah, I just think from a X's and O standpoint, what you mentioned is that the Lakers have just dominated this series over the past couple seasons here. And I think that doesn't stop here. I would expect a big game from LeBron. I would expect a big game from Anthony Davis. And, for the Spurs side of things, Wemby has been playing, like a man possessed. But after that, it's just been a lot of inconsistent play behind him because they haven't really found another guy next to him that can consistently provide that scoring output with the San Antonio Spurs. So with all that being said, we talk a lot about AD and LeBron, but Austin Reeves has been fantastic for this team as well. I don't think he's been talked about. So yeah, I'll go Lakers minus a 3.5 here. Lakers team total over would be the look here for me in this game as well. You have anything for the total?
For the total, I think I'd rather just go Lakers team total over because I don't think the Spurs can guard this team. The Lakers have played them twice. They've scored at least 119 both times. So I don't mind the Lakers team total over in this one. San Antonio, I don't really know if I actually like their offense that much. Wemby's going to have to do Wemby things, but do you like their offense? Because I'm not a Harrison Barnes guy. Champagne's been a nice piece. He's mostly a three-point, standstill shooter. He can occasionally drive to the basket, I guess, but do you like their ancillary pieces? Because I don't.
Scott not liking Harrison Barnes, so tell me I haven't heard that one before.
I think Spurs fans agree with me.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, it's what I mentioned, right? It's just they don't have a consistent player next to Wemby. And I think that's something that's the next step for this team. Figuring out how to build your roster around Victor Wembanyama because you want this guy to retire as a San Antonio Spur and you want to maximize, his talent, a generational talent in winning championships. But I don't know. I haven't watched a lot of these Spurs games, shockingly, because I know they've been on some national TV games, but
they are really painful to watch at times. They are really painful to watch.
A lot of obviously people are just turning in to watch Wemby, but it's that I don't know. I mean, Keldon Johnson is inconsistent. Devin Vassano's been dealing with injuries and things like that. But yeah, I'm not sold on this roster. This is not the roster that's going to obviously win them playoff games or let alone get them into the playoffs right now. So, enjoy just watching Wemby just bet his points and rebounds to go over and just collect your money at the end of the day. We're just going to mention the team total for this Lakers team, or the team total tonight seems really low. 111.5 is the number right now. Just kind of looking at over the last 10 games against this Spurs
They've probably
team.
gone over in almost every game against this team.
Yeah, so it's been 8 out of the last 10. In one game, they scored 110. The other one, they scored 105. But just over the last 5 games, Scott, I'll quickly just read these numbers off. 113, 122, 115, 123, 120, and 119. So I do expect them to have success on offense here tonight, like they have been against this Spurs team. Anything else for this game?
I have to at least mention LeBron triple-double because he's literally had a triple-double in each of the first 2 meetings this season.
Yeah.
So if you want to even ignore all of the, context of what's going on behind the scenes and stuff and how LeBron could have a statement game or whatever, he's just been unstoppable against this team. This team can't guard him. So I think LeBron triple-double could be interesting. If you want to go for LeBron triple-double and maybe get cute with it and take his under points with the rebounds and assists, that could be an option too. But AD should have a solid game scoring-wise. He tends to against Wemby. LeBron, once again, 2 triple-doubles in 2 games against this team this season. Maybe he balls out in this environment anyway, but the Spurs can't guard him. So I think LeBron might just, once again, stuff the stat sheet in this game and get a triple-double. So
I'll be curious to see what his his rebounds and assists are at. His double-doubles at minus 125. Let me see. Rebounds and assists. It's at 16.5 at even money over on DraftKings right now for LeBron. So I think that might be something I am definitely intrigued by for the game here tonight. All right, Scott, last game of the night. The other LA team, the Clippers at the Intuit Dome. They are hosting the Miami Heat. Clippers laying 6 points in this game with a total of 215. Injury report. Starting here with the Miami Heat, of course, we know that Jimmy Butler is serving the team suspension, more than likely has played his last game as a member of the Miami Heat.
You
Bam,
think he goes to Phoenix?
I mean, that's just all I'm reading is that it's a swap of Bradley Beal and Jimmy Butler, tack on the either role players or the draft capital to make it work. Seems like would be a beneficial to both teams, right? Because Bradley Beal could be just inserted into that starting lineup, score, and Jimmy Butler could, be that kind of like glue guy for this Phoenix Suns team, and they get off of the Bradley Beal deal as well. I know that Jimmy Butler is commanding a big contract, but I think the fit for Jimmy Butler and giving him a little bit of an edge or I guess, defensive identity, because we know when Jimmy Butler is healthy and playing well, like he's one of the best two-way players in the league, but it's just
A couple of big ifs there, but yes.
Yeah, 100%. But I mean, when he's focused, he is one of the best two-way players in my opinion in the NBA. But
I think the weird part though about the actual trade now is Beal's been really good coming off the bench.
Yeah, he's scoring like he's walking into like 20 plus points now. Is
I'm
Bradley
just saying,
Beal.
like I get Butler can give you a bit more defense, and your argument is he's a bit more of an alpha. So maybe
Sure.
you just want a guy that can, I'd say, emotionally lead the team. But
Mhm.
yeah, Beal's been good lately. Like I don't think trading Beal's really going to do anything for this team. But I think this team's too far gone to be honest. But I think Ishbia has decided he's going to keep kicking the can down the road, and he might just be trying to once again shuffle around some deck chairs in the Titanic to see what happens before the whole thing sinks. But they don't have any of their first round picks for a long time, so they're going to try to do something. I don't know, but I'll just put it this way: Beal, I think, has actually been pretty good.
Yeah, 100%. Injury report. Yeah, so for Miami, Jimmy Butler is out. Josh Richardson is doubtful, and then Bam is available to play. For the Clippers, pretty clean injury report. Nobody really of significance on there. I know Kawhi stepped away to attend to family that were dealing with the fires, but he is going to be playing here tonight for the Clippers. Clippers laying 6 here, Scott, at home. Total 215. What are your thoughts?
So I know I just took the Lakers a second ago, but that also was because I think the Spurs are really bad. So I've gone on record saying that before. I think the Spurs are not a good basketball team, and I really don't like their depth at all. Miami's kind of in a weird spot because they have been kind of respectable without Jimmy Butler lately. It looked ugly early. They've won 3 straight, though. Not good teams, though. They ended up beating Golden State. That was a bad spot. They're off a double overtime game. Again, they blew a 17-point lead in. They should have beaten the Kings, and the Kings have been good lately. So that's a decent, I'd say, outcome. They should have won the game, but of course they were competitive in that one. You saw them kill Golden State the game after on a back-to-back on the road, beat Utah. They won that game by 5. Utah's actually been kind of feisty lately, and they killed Portland. So Miami's been fine without Butler. And I feel like the Clippers, it's kind of weird because Kawhi did miss a game or two, so they got him back, and then he didn't play much, so it's tough to evaluate. But the Clippers have been kind of just weird to evaluate lately because they haven't been playing that well, and I can't tell if they hit a wall or what exactly happened there. But the Clippers, the last couple games, they played Minnesota. They led that game for a decent way, ended up losing. Played Denver, got their asses kicked with no Joker. They got buried in that game from start to finish. They've lost 4 of the last 5. They've really not been playing well. I think I'm going to go Miami in this one. Like the Lakers, I can make a case for because I think they're better than the Spurs, and I do think that the Spurs, once again, are not a great road team in general. The Heat this season have been, once again, interesting without Butler. They're 10-10 on the road. The Clippers, though, have not been playing that well. I don't know how many minutes Kawhi is going to play anyway, but I don't really want to lay 6 with this Clippers team right now. I think I'll go with Miami.
Yeah, it's the problem, or not the problem. The thing that's holding me back from taking the Clippers here is I want to see more games with James Harden and Kawhi Leonard out there. I know they blew out, was it the Atlanta Hawks, but they were in a back-to-back situation. It's the Atlanta Hawks on the road.
To be fair, by the way, if you have not been paying attention, the Hawks without Jalen Johnson are a really bad basketball team.
Yeah, 100%. I think the way I would attack this tonight is maybe it's a little bit square. Is probably just parlay the money lines for the 2 LA teams. Just thinking.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 1-10 on the Clippers.
Oh yeah, you could go 1-10 as well. I think that's a good angle as well. I mean, this could be a game where it does come down to the wire and the Clippers do pull it off at the end. Maybe they win by 4 or 5 points, but my head was telling me the Clippers here. You mentioned that they've been playing pretty well without Jimmy Butler has this team here. I'll also go with the Clippers. I'll go Clippers -6, but I'm definitely going to be parlaying the Lakers money line and the Clippers money line here tonight as I play here. You have anything for the total that you like?
I think for the total, I'll go under, but
Okay.
I really don't feel great about it. It's a really weird spot because the Clippers haven't played in about like 5 days. So I am kind of wondering how they're going to look, but they've been a mess offensively. I know Kawhi's missed some of those games, so it's tough to fully evaluate, but they scored 103 against the Denver, I'd say D squad because Joker didn't play. Scored 106 against Minnesota. They killed Atlanta, but Atlanta can't do anything right now without Jalen Johnson. Scored 98 against the Thunder, scored 86 against the Spurs. This team can't really score. And it's not like Miami is trying to play that fast-paced either. I think this might turn into a physical, grinded-out type game. Miami has allowed less than 99 points in 3 straight games. They've been really good defensively. It's kind of why they've actually turned it around a bit. I'll go with the under in this game.
All right. Yeah, I didn't have much for the total here, so it would be a pass for me. All right, so that is the last game of the Monday card. 6 games on the schedule here. Let's get into our lock and dog, and then we'll put together our underdog fantasy entry for the Monday card here. Scott, you want to lead us off with your lock and dog?
Sure. So for the lock on the show, I can't believe I'm actually going to do this.
Oh,
Give me
boy.
Toronto. +6 as my lock. I feel like I have to. The line is so disrespectful. I understand the Raptors are not good. They're better at home. I get it. Golden State, I don't know how I'm supposed to trust this team to not only win a game on the road, whatever, but to win by margin. This team stinks, especially without Kuminga. Kuminga's actually been an integral piece of this team, and it's been proven. Because without him, they have a hard time winning any games.
Yep.
Their wing depth is non-existent. I don't think this team's good anyway. And Toronto, yes, you might see them without Quickly, but they still have Barnes. They still have Barrett. I even think Pirtle can give this team problems on the board. So I like Toronto in this spot quite a bit. I think that this line is definitely, I'd say, high for Golden State, who is 9-9 on the road. They're 500 at home and on the road. Toronto, though, is 8-31 overall, but 7 of those wins are at home. So they are a lot better in Toronto than in opposing arenas, but 6? Really? With the Warriors? I can't do that. Based on what I've seen from this team over the last couple of games, even the game they won against the Pistons, they blew like a 20-point lead in the final 5 minutes of regulation, and they still barely won by 3. This team invents ways to punt games in the final 5 minutes, whether it involves winning outright or even just covering. I can't trust Golden State. Give me the Raptors plus the 6 as my lock for this one. For the dog, I was wondering if I actually wanted to go with LeBron triple-double in this one or not. I think I'm just going to go with the rebounds instead. You could go triple-double if you want it, but his rebounds are at 7.5. I can get 8.5 rebounds. I can get the over at plus 155. He has had 10-plus rebounds in each of the first 2 meetings of the season because he had a triple-double, obviously. Had 16 in the first meeting. I think that his rebounds are interesting. He has had at least 10 rebounds in each of the last 2 games as well. So LeBron has been more involved in the rebounding lately, and I do think that it's a good matchup for him. If he gets the triple-double, obviously he gets there anyway. But I go with LeBron rebounds here. Give me the over 8.5 at plus 155 as my dog.
It's telling that they have his double-double listed at minus 125.
Yeah.
So I think the rebounds would be the look here for LeBron, but I do like his RA as well to go over 16.5 at even money. All right. For my lock, I will go.
You probably didn't expect me to take the Raptors as my lock on the show, but
No, I did not.
I know.
I'm not saying it came out of left field, but I know you haven't been fond, I guess we should say, of the Warriors.
If you've
this
been in
season.
the Warriors in the last couple months, you've made a lot of money. I don't know if you can afford your own yacht yet, but you're probably doing pretty well.
Yeah, you're getting pretty close to that for sure. I'll say that Lakers game, man. I think this number is too low. I don't understand it. 110.5 on their team total. 111.5 for the team total here for the LA Lakers. We talked about the historical matchups. They've scored 112 or more points in 8 out of the last 10 head-to-head meetings. Each of the 2 meetings this season, they've scored 119 plus points, and they've had a long layoff of about a week here. Maybe is there going to be rust? I don't think so. I think that they'll be more rested than anything and just more energized to come out and play well here. So it's the Lakers team total over 111.5 for me as my lock. For my dog, there wasn't a lot that I liked as far as an outright dog. I do agree about your pick with the Raptors, though. Would we be surprised if they won this game outright? Absolutely not.
Forgot to mention, by the way, Draymond missed shoot around with an illness. And there
Yeah.
have been a lot of illnesses going around the league, and it's been pretty serious because a lot of guys have missed games.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think Draymond's going to play today.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so either. I'm not sure if they play tomorrow or not, but we can double check that here. But I think I'll go Pistons in the first half. These first half money lines have worked out well for me. This is a completely different Detroit Pistons team, and I think led by Cade in the first half, I think they could come out and play well. Maybe I don't want to say maybe a letdown spot, but I do believe it's a letdown spot for the New York Knicks after their performance yesterday against the Milwaukee Bucks. We mentioned that the Pistons went in there earlier this season, won the game, scored 120 points. Right now, the money line on DraftKings in the first half of the Detroit Pistons is at plus 200. So I will definitely take that one to the bank there. So give me the Pistons first half money line plus 200. If you want to split a unit each, take the plus 5 in the first half, and also a little bit on the money line there. I couldn't fault you for that, but I do like the Pistons in this spot here against the New York Knicks. All right, Underdog Fantasy entry here for tonight, Scott. Make sure you use that promo code NBA SGPN. Get your, if you don't have an account, first time deposit offer 50% up to $1,000, courtesy of Underdog Fantasy. Let me pull it the app up here and we'll put together our entry here. All right, where do you want to start here for tonight, Scott?
Well, if you want to go back to that Toronto game, I actually am intrigued by Pirtle potentially for his rebounds in this game. He had 12 last game against Detroit. Against Golden State, though, he's been really good. He's had 11-plus rebounds in 2 straight, had 18 rebounds against Golden State in the last meeting. He did go under in a couple games, I'd say with the Spurs a couple years ago, but barely. His rebounding totals against this team in the last 5 games against Golden State, 14, 11, 10, 10, and 14. I think he can have a pretty solid rebounding game tonight. I don't mind Pirtle.
All right, I'll throw that in there. So we'll go higher on Jakob Poeltl, 10.5 rebounds. Do we want to go Braun rebounds or assists?
RA?
RA, yeah, I was thinking that. Let's see.
There's no reason not to. Once again, back-to-back triple doubles against this team.
Yeah, 100%. The number is at, where is LeBron? 16.5 is the number. Yeah. So we'll go higher on that. One more let's throw out there. Let's see. Do you want to go Cade like assist or points and assists?
I was thinking about Cade. His points are at 24.5, but the issue is he really hasn't been consistently going over because he's been so selfless. He's been willing to pass, and I feel like that's kind of a problem there. I mean, against the Knicks in the first meeting this season, he did have 29 in a triple-double. But he also shot 9 of 17 from the floor. So he shot, I mean, he has scored at least 29 points in 3 of his last 4 against the Knicks. So I don't necessarily hate it, but I just want to ask if you think that there's something better out there.
I think his assist at 9.5. Like, I think if we think that he walks into a double-double tonight, it'll be because of the assist. And like you mentioned, he's been willing to pass the basketball. So I don't mind assists. 9.5 is the number.
Okay. I was wondering if I wanted to go for like Şengün or something, but I don't know if I actually want to.
So just saw John Moran is now listed as questionable with an illness.
Of course he is. Do you want Şengün rebounds maybe?
Yeah, let's see what he's at.
Şengün
He's
had
at 10 and
15
a half.
rebounds. He had 15 rebounds in the first game and 14 rebounds in the second game.
All right.
Şengün rebounds is probably worth a look.
You just want to go rebounds, or you want to go rebounds and assist?
I think I'll just go rebounds because
All
I
right.
feel like Memphis might switch their defensive coverages because Şengün absolutely torched them last game.
Yeah.
But he still rebounded the ball well. So I think that it's a good spot for Şengün.
All right. So our entry here for tonight will be Jakob Poeltl, higher 10 and a half rebounds. We'll go LeBron James, higher 16 and a half rebounds and assists. And then we'll go Şengün of the Rockets, higher 10 and a half rebounds against the Grizzlies here tonight. That'll get you a 6x entry. Every $10 that you do put in, if all three of those are correct, will return you $60 for every $10 that you do put on that entry. So come join the fun if you haven't already. Make sure you use that promo code NBASGPN. And that, my friends, will do it here for this edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast. Scott, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
No, not really. Once again, looking forward to the games tonight. Should be fun. And, of course, we still have some NFL playoffs coming up over the next weekend. So, of course, SGPN has you covered there. Not me, but the network does have you covered. So, yeah, we cover a lot of sports over here. I'll be busy doing some tennis. I have the Australian Open, so I'll be covering that as well. And I'll probably have an episode tomorrow. So if you do want some Australian Open coverage for round 2 on the men's side, I'll have an episode there. Been good. So far 3-0 in the lock and dog picks for the first round. One match tonight, so hopefully end up sweeping both episodes. But either way, point is tennis is going on, and I'll be up until 6 a.m. every day, basically.
There you go. Make sure you guys follow Scott over at the Tennis Gambling Podcast. First major of the year, or Grand Slam, whatever it's called. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Either one, that's fine.
Yeah. Australian Open going on right now. So make sure you guys tap in with Scott over on the Tennis Gambling Podcast. And we'll be back tomorrow in some form or fashion for the NBA Gambling Podcast. Same place, same time. So come join us then. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off, and always remember to let it ride.
Basketball, gimme, gimme.